but we don't address the actual issues. Thank you very much. No, this is a combination, legitimate point, at least I think it is, and shameless plug. Penny and I made this movie trying to get good, The Jazz Odyssey of Jack Sheldon, which we're selling at the back table. And the reason we did it, frankly, is you get overwhelmed with grief at what we have to deal with here, a concern, because you're living your life, you're trying to raise your kids, you're trying to pay your bills and your taxes, and you're trying to do the right thing. But you're only one person, and it seems like they're up 24/7, just in rooms that don't get covered, and conversations and emails you'll never read, and articles that never get published. And you just can feel it in your bones that the system is rigged against you and in favor of somebody, as has been pointed out, oftentimes doesn't even live in the state. So what do we do about it? Well, partly what you have to do is celebrate that part of Los Angeles that is wonderful. That's one of the reasons we made the movie about this fantastic musician, Jack Sheldon, because he's part of LA too. You know, LA does beautiful things too. It does creative and wonderful things. And it can be a kind city, and it can be a caring city. But unfortunately, either not, you know, I don't want to ascribe motives to people. I can't see inside someone's heart. So I'm not ascribing that anybody in elective office is a bad person. But what I'm saying is they are certainly participants in a bad system. He does, and Mayor Sam's blog and the Witness LA, there's a whole bunch of great blogs that cover Los Angeles. But I also believe that why don't we put heat on the Los Angeles Times by buying the Daily News? Let's buy the damn paper. Let's see the circulation go up. And then let's pressure them to cover the city the way it needs to be covered and make them respond to their readers and their customers. Because I'll tell you right now, if the Daily News goes out of business, the information monopoly becomes catastrophic in the city of Los Angeles with a one-paper town and a one-party political system. So we need to step up and do what can be done. And to whatever your capacity is. So I thank you so much for the time, but I will end again, run for your life, the life of Los Angeles.
Okay, we have a handful of questions, and before, if you folks, some of you folks are raising your hands, but the questions that we're going to ask for the folks that did fill out the speaker cards, ask the questions. If you do leave before the meeting actually ends, if you could take your stuff in front of you and throw it in the garbage can on your way out, otherwise Jules and Chuck would be here all night cleaning up. We went through the questions, and a handful of the questions have nothing to do with the speaker, so we're going to pass those on to the different council offices that will answer that. If we don't ask your question tonight, it's not because it wasn't the best question. It absolutely was. It's because we ran out of time. Okay?
Okay. Charles Gerard would like to know, why don't we have news reporters like Ed Murrow and Carl Bernstein, etc., who really reported in depth what's going on in government on really pertinent topics, not infotainment?
Well, because here's the reality. The sad reality is, well, you want to go back to this, Ron? It's 1970s. Patty Chayefsky wrote a movie called Network that really lays this out. The FCC made a very obscure ruling. You know, for years in the Ed Murrow days, news wasn't rated. It was not rated. And therefore the networks and the local television stations were free to broadcast news that had substance. But what happened was in the 70s, they made a ruling that news programs were now rated. And that's why Patty Chayefsky wrote the movie Network, because then it said, well, now that they're just another show. And they've become another show. And what they found out is a discussion of the city council or the board of supervisors or the school board or a state assembly bores people. So Britney Spears shaving her head doesn't. So that's what gets covered. And then that has been really the downward spiral. And I know that there's a lot of trained journalists who loathe it. They're trapped in a system that they don't like either, but that's the commercial reality of why that has happened. And now, of course, budget cuts run every business, and slashing reporters has become a way of life in the newsrooms. And it's very dangerous because while with the internet there's 14 billion ways to get the news, there's fewer and fewer hands gathering the news. So the actual news that you're getting is turning us to blogs, and it's turning us to websites, to citizen journalists and citizen reporters, and it's going to become a very important part of the equation. It's already an important part of the equation, it's going to become more so.
Doug, do you get any flack from our city council for your outspoken views, Myrna Winstein?
No, the city council ignores. I'll tell you who responds. The Valley councilors will be responsive. They'll at least acknowledge, because my show has enough listeners in the San Fernando Valley that they don't want to be bothered by. So it's easy to just come on the show occasionally and, you know, throw a couple of crumbs off the table. But for the most part, the issues that I talk about, as long as they can keep them corralled into the province of talk radio, they can justify that, well, that's just the rantings of a right-wing racist nut. You know, that's right-wing talk radio. That's, you know, Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, and they don't have to address it. And that's why I believe, for instance, that the murder of Jamil Shaw II is such a profound case, because you see, you have a story here that when it leaks out of talk radio, it enrages people that the city hasn't acted. And they're terrified of it, with the result that they're doing anything they possibly can to shut it down.
Dennis Spiegelman would like to know why you don't run for office.
Well, there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons. I believe that the work that I'm doing now is very important, because I'm very blessed to have a platform that allows me to talk to 500,000 people a day. And even my show, we've had to goof it up a lot lately to stay competitive, to stay on the air. But in between goofy stuff that we have to do to stay on the air, we can talk to school board members and to city council members and to board of suit members and state assembly people, and we can talk about these issues in a passionate way, in a real way, and try to cut through to the extent of our ability to divine the truth, which in many cases is not easy, but we're allowed to talk about these things with a big flamethrower signal at KABC, 60 years on the market. So frankly, I would lose that platform. And if I were to ever run for office, plus, frankly, it never even occurred to me to do that, I'm going to be honest with you. But there are people who do think about running for office. And I'll tell you one thing, if you run for office, you're going to find a lot of support from our show to publicize your candidacy and to let people know that there is an alternative to the status quo.
A couple of questions about radio personalities. Whatever happened to Ken Minyard and Mr. KABC?
Well, Ken Minyard retired after a remarkable career. He was in this #1 for 17 straight years in Los Angeles and Morning Drive. He made a lot of money, tons of dough, and he's retired now and enjoying life. He lives up in Oxnard. He has a yacht and a big motorhome and drives around the country and is enjoying himself. Mark Germain, Mr. KABC, is really a very close friend of mine. We talk all the time, 3-4 times a week. And he was caught in budget cuts, which is exactly what happened at KABC. And then he went over to KTLK and got caught in budget cuts. So now he's launched a new radio network online called Talk Radio 1. And if you write that down, you can hear Mark Germain, Mr. KABC, through the web. He's a wonderful person, great father, good husband. He's just a great guy. But I will deny that if you tell him I said it.